أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The verse that I recited is ayat number 183 from Surah Baqarah. Earlier in the recitation of the group recitation of Holy Quran, we recited this ayah and those verses regarding fast in chapter number 2. So this is one of those verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing us with this command, with this wujub of fast being something which is wajib upon you. And hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this order. O those who believe, O those who have brought faith in me, fast as the same fast was prescribed on people who lived before you, so that you may become muttaqeen. With that said, if you remember the discussion that we had last night, and in that discussion we spent some time talking about the importance of this wajib that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made upon us. Here tonight, very briefly, I wanted to continue with that discussion, and since it was requested for by the brother for Isa alayhi Sawab Majlis, inshallah we will have a masaib towards the end as well. That the siyam, or this fast of the month of Ramadan, is amongst the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said, Maulana, it's a very difficult task, and you're calling it to be a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at all the benefits that are associated with it, then you can but imagine that it is indeed one of the biggest favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. Many riwayat that I stumbled over while I was trying to prepare tonight's discussion, and inshallah I'll share a few with you. One of the du'as that we make in this month of Ramadan, this line has appeared in that du'a. It says, Allahumma ja'al siyami fihi siyam as-sa'imin. Oh Allah, make my fast is the fast of those who fast in this month. That means those who really, truly fast in this month. Wa qiyami fihi qiyam al-qa'imin. And me standing up all night vigil in your worship, make it to be the standing of those who really do the haqq of standing up all night in your ibadat. وَنَبِّهْنِي فِيهِ عَنْ نَوْمَةِ الْغَافِلِينَ. And also warn me and keep me ready so that I don't become heedless and negligent in reference to those who are ghafil and heedless due to their slumber and their sleep. وَهَبْلِي جُرْمِي فِيهِ يَا إِلَهَ الْعَالَمِينَ وَعْفُ عَنِّي يَا آفِيًا عَنِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. And of course, the dua to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of the sins and the crimes that we may have committed. Similarly, the Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam mentions in that continuation, he says, رُبَّ قَائِمٍ حظه من قيامه السهر ورب سائم حظه من صيامه على عطش. That many of those who stand up all night, they achieve nothing except getting tired standing up all night. And many who fast during this month, they achieve nothing except extravagant amount of thirst and hunger. That the outcome of their ibadat is merely getting tired And the outcome of their fast is merely being thirsty and hungry. That's the benefit some people get out of it. Allahu Akbar. Let's just hope that we are not amongst those who get this sort of benefit from fasting. So therefore, ulama have divided, or from the benefiting from the riwayat of Masumeen, the group of those who fast into three categories. There are three types of people when it comes to fasting. The first group is the group of laymen, ordinary people, awam. Second is the group of distinguished people, khawas. And the third is the group of the most distinguished, khasul khawas, or khawasul khawas. Those who are distinguished amongst those who are distinguished. Yes, these are the three categories when it comes to, fasting. You might not find these three different categories in other places, in other ibadat, but at least in this ibadat you find in the riwayat of Masumeen. So there's the fast of those who are awam, then there's the fast of those who are khawas, and then there's the fast of those who are khawasul khawas, or khasul khawas. Those who are laymen, those who are distinguished, and those who are most distinguished. What is the difference between the three? It says the fast of the layman, it is a fast in which he has control over his stomach and his lustful desires, merely avoiding eating and drinking, and of course controlling his desires to not go after those things which will invalidate his fast. That's a layman. You say, well, that pretty much describes my fast. That's why I fast, that I'm able to control my stomach, that I'm able to control, my lust and my desires. That's the maximum that I get out of it. Yes, therefore, this is the fast of who? This is the fast of those who are, according to this riwayat, layman, lay person. And then the second is the fast of the distinguished. Distinguished are those who protect all their organs from haram and committing sins. Based on the tradition of the fifth Imam, this person has attained the true thawab of a sa'im. Why? Not only that he has done what the laymen have done, but also on top of that, he has protected all of his organs and a'dha. I remember that we mentioned that last night as well. So that's the fast of those who are distinguished. So now you're wondering, if that's the fast of the distinguished, and Imam is also, confirming that this person has paid due diligence when it comes to fasting, that he's done the haqq of fast, then what is the fast of those who are, khawasul khawas, the most distinguished? It's the fast of the most distinguished above, aside from the above that we mentioned. Not only he doesn't commit sins, but he keeps his heart pure from thinking about sins. Yes. This month gives you that ability that not only that you don't sin, but you could have control to the extent that you don't even think about sinning. Guess what? That's what Masumeen do. When Imam was asked, "Oh Imam, how is it that you don't even think about sinning?" Yes, they're Masum. So, bil fail, it is possible for them to go ahead and, consume something which is forbidden, do something which is haram. But Imams, not only that they don't, because they're ma'asum, but they don't even think about committing haram. So fast of those who are khasul khawas is to the level where they are also abstaining from what? Abstaining from even thinking about that which is haram. So a person came to Imam and he said, "Imam, how is it that you don't even think about it?" Imam gave a, beautiful example, but using something which may be disgusting. Imam said, if there's a food which has been sitting in the garbage and has rotten for past couple of days, would you eat it if you were hungry? He said, not only that I won't eat it, I won't even think about eating it. Imam said, just like that rotten food, you don't even think about eating it even though you're hungry, because you know the effects of that rotten food. It's been sitting there for a couple of days. God knows what's in it now. Similarly, we don't even think about committing sins. Sins are just like that rotten food or the poisonous food for you, which you don't even think about eating and consuming. So here you go. That's how Imam. And there are some other words which I mentioned might be, um, you know, that Imams use, that things that you would not consume. Don't even think about consuming. You know. Therefore, we find that this is the fast of those who are most distinguished. That not only that he performs what others have done, Awam and the Khawas, but on top of that, he protects his heart and keeps it pure as well. Therefore, not even thinking about sinning. Iftar of such a person is being heedless from the remembrance of Allah. You know when did they break their fast? If for a moment they stop thinking and doing the dhikr of Allah, that's when their fast is broken. Their fast is not broken by eating something. Their fast is broken when they stop thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, that's why he's always busy doing the dhikr of Allah. So iftar of the fast of a layman is at the time of Maghrib. When the time of Maghrib comes, that's when the iftar of a layman, an ordinary individual. Iftar of the distinguished is at the time of their death. And the iftar of the most distinguished is in attaining the pleasure and the nearness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you look at it from this perspective, you find how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be amongst those who are the khawas of khawas. With that said, there are atharat and the benefits that are associated with it. I usually do take a couple of days in highlighting this, because we should not forget that this month of Ramadan makes it wajib upon us, but the effects of fasting remain if we were to go ahead and fast outside of month of Ramadan. So we tend to forget that. So it is important that if we're only going to be fasting during the month of Ramadan, to remind ourselves of these favors and the benefits that are associated with it. There was another beautiful hadith in this reference, but because of the time, I'll keep it towards the end. If we had time, inshallah, I will bring that hadith later on. Therefore, there are some individual benefits that a person can attain. We talked about some of the social effects and some of the social benefits that are associated with fasting. Let's think about some of the individual effects and some of the individual benefits that are associated with fasting. For some, January is the start of a new year. For the dua of our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, وَأَرْبَحَنَا أَفْضَلَ أَرْبَاهِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Dua for Eid. Imam has this fiqra in it, that the best of the Prophet of the Alameen, we have attained that. The best of the prophets, best of the gains. How? Through this month of Ramadan. So for some, January is the start of the new year. When they buy new things, they make resolutions. For some, end of the summer is like the start of the new year. For example, the farmers who are waiting to, harvest, and they're waiting for the product to be ready. Ibn Tawus alayhi rahmah said, for Ahl Suluk, those who are the travelers on the path of prosperity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ramadan is the start of the new year for them. So they can judge what they have done from last year of Ramadan up until this point. So this is a point for them to go ahead and judge themselves. This is a point for them, how you think about when the new year comes along, what have I gained, what have I achieved, you assess, you evaluate. They evaluate themselves during the month of Ramadan. Now this month of Ramadan has started. I started fasting in this month of Ramadan. I started performing all of those things which brings me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then until the next month of Ramadan that comes along, have I been able to maintain that? Maintaining is very important. We can all gain the heights in a second or two, but to be able to maintain that height for a long time is something which is very, very difficult. So they measure their level of marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from last year. This year, what is the level of our marifat of Allah? And then following year, make that to be the scale of measuring your level of marifat. Measure their level of knowledge. How many religious issues have they been able to solve? But unfortunately, when it comes to this fast, same exact issues are repeated every year. That's okay, because it's not your subject. and it's not fiqh is not your subject, and you're not experts in it, and therefore it is possible that you may have these questions, recurring questions every year. But this is where this upbringing or this nurturing, this development has to come. That we're able to attain knowledge of at least that bare minimum which is required by all of us. That we should know the laws. You know, someone asked me, Maulana, I did not fast today because I was going to travel later on during the day. I was going to go to, for example, New York. I had I had to go pick up someone from the airport. So I did not fast today because I was going to go to New York anyway at 10 a.m. And you told me, and we all know that if you travel before Dhuhr and you come back after Dhuhr and you travel out of your city and the limits, then your fast is gone for the day. So because I knew that I had to go to the airport at 10 a.m. and I would not come back from JFK, let's say by 1 or 2 p.m., which is after Dhuhr, so my fast would be gone. So I said, well, why even bother fasting today? No, you have to remain in the state of fasting up until that point that you are in your city, until that 10 a.m. mark. You can't just begin the day without fasting. Oh, is there kafara upon me? There will most definitely be kafara if you were aware of the mas'ala. So we are all aware of the mas'ala. It's just that we did not think of it that way. You can't just not begin your day without fasting. You have to fast. And then when you travel and when you reach that place which is beyond your city limits, where your salat becomes qasr, this is where your fast is gone. If you were to eat something, then it will remain that your fast for that day is for sure gone, and there's no qaza, there's no kafara rather, but there is qaza for you afterwards. As we recited this ayat last night, ayat number 185, which talks about that if you are in safar, if you are mareez, or if you are traveling. So that goes in that category. But you can't just begin the day because you know that later on in the day you're going to be traveling. So today I won't even bother fasting. I won't even get up for fajr, or I won't even get up for suhoor or sehri, and I'll just skip the fast of the day. No, you can't do that. That's like by on purpose breaking the fast, and which definitely requires a kafara, and kafara is a tough one. So therefore, increase your knowledge when it comes to the religious issues pertaining to fast. And in this day and age that we live in, if you don't have access to someone like me who's a student of Hausa, or the ulama and scholars that are around you, if you don't have access to one of them, then it's in the fingertips. All you gotta do is log on, use the computer, go to the website of your marja, and you can find the mas'ala. And they have, alhamdulillah, in all languages available, languages that you and I speak. It's there in Arabic, it's there in Persian, it's there in Urdu, it's there in English, and many other languages that it has been translated into. We're able to find so many technical things, but when it comes to finding the mas'ala that we need, one of our scholars wrote a book literally for this particular purpose. Sheikh Saduq alayhi rahmah, he has a book called what? Man la yahdaruhu al-faqih. This book is for those who do not have in access a faqih, a jurist. When they don't have a jurist in their access, then this book is sufficient for you. Now this book has been translated, then made simple and simplified, oversimplified in a layman's term, and then put on these websites of the Maraja, and you can easily find these masail. So therefore, before you act, make sure that you find. Therefore, we need to increase the level of knowledge when it comes to these religious issues, which are very, very relevant in this day and age, especially when it comes to the simple prayer, when it comes to fast, when it comes to all of those other masail. Level of deterrence in front of sins. This is where those who are the wayfarers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they measure their level of deterrence. That from this year's Ramadan up until next year's Ramadan, have we been able to deter more against the desires and the sins? Or no, The month of Ramadan came, we fasted, we did all of the obligations, and then it left, and then we go back to our, normal life again. And then when it'll come back again next year, then we'll worry about it. This is a training period for you. It's a training facility for you. And then lastly, month of Ramadan for Salikin, for traveler, is the month of accountability. It's the month of muhasibah nafs, that you hold yourself accountable. There's so many riwayat in this reference, but I'll skip through it so that I can conclude this discussion tonight, inshallah, so that we can get to the other discussions that I have for you planned, inshallah, throughout the month. A tradition from our 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musarradah, alayhi salatu wassalam, Imam said, لو أن الناس قصروا في الطعام لاستقامت أبدانهم. And then another one of the benefits of fasting that Imam mentions, he says, if people eat less food, their bodies will remain healthy longer. Yes. One of the reasons that you find our maraji, 100 years old, 95 years old, well into their 90s. In fact, when they're well above 75, that's when they're recognized as the marja taqlid. Unless, of course, those geniuses who became marja taqlid, in their 40s, in their 50s. But by the time they get to the 70s, 75, that's when they're really recognized as, Ayatullah al-Uzma or marja taqlid. So we find that, they get to live so long. They're 90 years old, 95 years old. Some of the existing maraja that we have, many of them are in their 90s right now. And they are well within their, intelligence. They're still giving lectures. They're still giving fatwa. They're still issuing verdicts. They're still being approached by people. They're meeting. So what happened? They may have followed this tradition of Imam and many such traditions of Imams, that if people eat less food, their bodies will remain healthy longer. The more you eat, then what your body requires is in excess, which again, obviously remains in the blood and causes the microbes and bacteria to develop. Again, if those things remain, that's only going to be bringing, more and more difficulty for you. Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a tradition, he says, Sumu tasihhu, fast and you will remain healthy. Fasting is a method of giving rest to the stomach. It is one of the most sensitive systems in our bodies created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why most sensitive? Because it is used on daily basis. Yeah, I'm sure other organs are also used daily basis, but the excess of the usage of this system that God has created, this digestive system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, the stomach, the functions that it has of distributing that which we consume to different places, is one of the most delicate and the most used systems in our body. What does month of Ramadan do to the system? Month of Ramadan gives this machinery a rest. For a month long, because you're only eating once in the morning, barely, and then you're eating at the iftar. There's a gap of 15, 16 hours in between. The stomach can rest. This function of your body can relax a little bit so that it will go back to its natural being after this month is over. So 1 month's fasting actually giving it a rest. But that's speaking from the physical perspective. Speaking from the spiritual perspective, Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha, he says, Kam min akalatin mana'at akalat. Often, inordinate desire to secure a single gain or single morsel, which is haram, as a hindrance for the quest of many profitable pursuits. One haram morsel, Kam min akalatin mana'at akalat. That you try to gain that one thing, which then becomes hindrance in gaining a bigger and profitable pursuit. Sometimes one extra morsel becomes the cause of an illness, which deprives eating for many, many days. Isn't it the case that you ate something the other day or the other night, or you went out somewhere and you ate something over there, your body reacted to it, and now you can't eat anything for the next couple of days or maybe a week. You're only surviving on liquid. So كم من أكلة منعت أكلات. How many times a morsel becomes the reason for the deprivation of many morsels to come? And then look at it from the perspective of spirituality. That how sometimes one haram morsel could lead to such devastation as well. Third is the spirit. This is a perfect segue into the spiritual effects and the benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you may become pious. Prophet of Islam has a tradition in this reference as well. He says, أربعة لا ترد لهم دعوة حتى تفتح لهم أبواب السماء. There are 4 people for whom their dua is not turned down until the doors of the heavens are open. وتصير إلى العرش الوالد لولده والمظلوم على من ظلمه والمعتمر حتى يرجع والصائم حتى يفطر. It says 4 people, their dua is never turned down until it reaches the throne of Allah and the doors of heavens are opened for it. What are these 4 people? It's mentioning that the first is the father's dua. Al-walidu liwaladihi. Father's dua for his children. Others might have, some reason and gharaz and jealousy, but a father can never be jealous of his son. So this dua is always what khalis. You ask someone, can you please make dua for me? That person is already jealous and envious of you because of what you have and what he has. So they may make dua for you, but it may not be khalis for you. But I'm not saying that's true all the time. But when a father is making dua for his son, that is always khalis, sincere. Because there's no gharaz that he has from his son. And therefore, this dua is something which is never turned down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hatta it reaches the arsh ilahi and the abwab as-sama are opened. Number 2, dua of an oppressed mazloom against oppression. When a mazloom is making dua, his dua and his sigh of reaches the arsh ilahi the quickest. Number 3, dua of the visitor of the house of Allah until he returns home. So when you go for umrah and when you go for hajj, your dua is accepted. Not only that dua is answered and accepted while you're there, but until you return home, this dua is continued to be accepted and it's not turned down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And lastly but not least, dua by a fasting person until he breaks his fast. I think I've recited this tradition more than 20 times. I can remember that when the Holy Prophet ascended to Mi'raj, and when he was in Mi'raj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the Holy Prophet. And when he spoke to him, one of the questions that Allah asked him, Ya Ahmad, بأي وقت يتقرب العبد من المعبود? What is the time when the servant is closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And Prophet said, La adri. You tell me, O Allah, what is the best time? What is the time when he's closest to you? Allah responded by saying, إِذَا كَانَ جَائِعًا أَوْ سَاجِدًا. When that person is empty stomach and when he's prostrating and doing sajda of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, dua by a fasting person until he breaks his fast is mawrid qabul, and therefore do not squander this opportunity that you have. Fifth Imam said, إِذَا صُمْتَ فَلْيَصُمْ سَمْعُكَ وَبَصَرُكَ. If you fast, fast with your ears and fast with your basirat, with your vision as well. Fasting is for the well-being of your soul. Similarly, exercise and travel is good for the well-being of your health. There's so much emphasis laid upon traveling and going around, Siru fil ard, ayat of Quran. Many places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Siru fil ard falyanzur. Travel in the land and then see what is the aqibat of those who were mukazzibeen, those who were liars, those who were kafirin, those who were wrongdoers, you will see their aqibat when you see the ruins when you travel and make your travels. His mind and his duties. This is a good, therefore, it is necessary for an employee to take some time off from the work, during the month and during the year, especially the, system that we live in. There's this vacation that you get from your employer. So therefore, it is important because when you take this time out and when you go out and when you visit different places and then you come back, you have this new energy within you. Ramadan serves the same purpose. When you take a break from the entire year's enjoyment, nobody was stopping you from, eating whatever you wanted to, enjoyment of all you wanted to, things that you wanted to do, obviously within the realm of halal. But this is the 1 month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you. It's sort of like a break, like a vacation, doing what you want and eating what you want for the 30 days. You go ahead and have this vacation. So treat it like that and see how you can benefit from it. It is one of the means of fighting with our nafs and as well as with every type of shaitan. Yes, there are more than one type of shayateen. Shayateen are put into custody in the month of Ramadan. They're unable to leave and misguide you. Someone said, well, I still see people who are misguided. What's misguiding them? So there are multiple shayateen. That Iblis shaitan is placed into custody so that he cannot come and misguide you. But there are many shayateen that exist outside of Iblis. Our nafs sometimes serves as shaitan. Some individuals gain the attribute of shayateen and they start misleading as well. And therefore Prophet said in a very beautiful hadith to his son companions, he said, Ala ukhbirukum, do you want me to inform you bishay'in, with something, idha in antum fa'altumuhu, if you were to perform this thing, taba'ad ash-shaytanu minkum kama taba'ad al-mashriq min al-maghrib. Shaitan will be so far away from you, will get so far away from you as mashriq, east is away from the west. East will always be away from the west. That's why they're the opposite of each other. Is that if you want, shaitan to be away from you the same way east is away from west, people right away said, yes, bala, sure, why not? As-sawmu yusawwidu wajhahu was-sadaqatu taksiru dhahrahu والحب في الله والموازرة على العمل الصالح يقطع دابره والاستغفار يقطع وتينه ولكل شيء زكاة وزكاة الأبدان الصيام. Said 4 things that are mentioned here. Number 1, fasting frowns the face of shaitan dark. Yuswaddu wajhahu. That if you fast, shaitan becomes angry, he frowns, and his face complexions change. Number 2, sadaqah. When you give sadaqah in this month of Ramadan especially, it what? Breaks the back of shaitan. It's this is used as an example that so and so broke my back. I was so reliant upon them, reliant upon them. I relied on so and so, but they're no longer offering any help. It broke my back. When you use this muhabara like that, same way it is mentioned that it breaks the back of shaitan when you give sadaqah. Love and friendship for Allah and cooperation in good deed dissolves shaitan's tasallut and stronghold upon you. And lastly, tawbah and istighfar can remove the existence of shaitan completely from your life. And for everything there is zakat, and the zakat of your bodies is what? The zakat of your bodies is fasting. That's why there's zakatul fitrah that we give at the end of the month of Ramadan. With that, I wanted to bring it towards the end. I have a few minutes with me. That hadith, inshallah, it's a lengthy hadith and requires in-depth explanation, so I'll keep that hadith inshallah for another time. As brother had also requested for Masaib towards the end. Just thinking about, the role that our fourth Imam played. Our fourth Imam, I was reading in one of his habits during the month of Ramadan, that during the month of Ramadan, because obviously Imam had servants that were serving Imam, some of them were slaves, and Imams would use these to buy from other people and then free them. But these slaves were so fond of Ma'sumin that they would not want to be freed. They said, no, we'd rather be with you as slaves than be freed and, be on our own. But Imam ﷺ, this was the agenda that they were working on to alleviate this, concept from the society. So Imam, our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin ﷺ, he also had some slaves and some servants. And Imam would document their mistakes during the month of Ramadan. And at the end of the month, Imam would gather them, bring them all together, stand in the middle of all of them, and Imam would remind them of the mistakes that they made. And of course, because Imam had written it down, there was no denial. And then Imam would say to them, repeat what I am about to say after me. They would repeat. He said, the same way I have said this, Ali ibn Hussein. So Imam was telling them to speak to him in this way. Say, O Ali ibn Hussein, O Zainul Abidin. They would repeat, the slaves would repeat, O Zainul Abidin. The same way you have documented our mistakes and our lapses in this month of Ramadan, which is there's no denial of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also documenting your mistakes. Don't worry about it. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has documented your mistakes the same way you have documented our mistake. This is the kalam of Imam. Of course, Imam is ma'soom. There's no concept of mistake, but Imam is showing this, teaching this to us. Otherwise, what would be the explanation of Dua Kumail, where Amirul Mu'mineen is saying, Kullu dhammin adnabtu, all the sins that I have committed. Same thing is what our fourth Imam is doing here. He says, repeat this after me. O Zainul Abidin, the way you have documented our mistakes in this month of Ramadan, which we cannot deny, because yes, you have written them down. Guess what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also documented your mistakes, and He will show it to you on the day of judgment. Therefore, if you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you, you should also forgive us. Imam is making his servants read and repeat this sentence. Basically, he's asking them to ask him to be forgiving, especially in this month of Ramadan. Because if you are forgiving in this month, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also forgive you on the day of judgment, even if you were coming with a lot of mistakes. That was our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin. He said, oh Allah, you have given us this opportunity in this month to be your guests. And I am your guest, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That itself is enough of a reward for me, that I can't imagine anything else as a reward from you. You are being invited as the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that same fourth Imam, Ravi, says that I saw him in a state while his legs were tied up to a camel, while his hands were tied behind his back, while his head was lowered, and he could not even see anything ahead of him. And this was the situation when a person says, who are these people? They said, these are, this is a group of rebels that stood up against Khalifatul Muslimin. He said, who was their leader? He said, their leader was Hussein ibn Ali, who was martyred, who was killed in Karbala. This person starts weeping, starts crying. Imam Zainul Abidin, who sees that in this crowd, everyone is mocking us, everyone is making fun of us, everyone is threatening us, we're not safe, all of them are laughing at us. And who is this one man who's crying and weeping for us? Imam, who are you? He said, Mawla, it's not important who I am, but I am yet indeed one of your followers. I wish and I hope that I had never come here to see such a scene, to see you and your family suffering in this way, becoming captives in the hands of these atrocious people. Imam said, now that you have mentioned that you are our follower and our lover and our muhib, then do one thing, do a favor to us. Ask these individuals and these people to move away, to look at, take these heads upon which there are spears of shuhada, to continue to move them away from the rest of the caravan, so that people only look at them and they don't look at the open heads without veils of the ladies of my household. My Zainab, my aunt Zainab, Kulthum, and all the other women in this household, they are also with me and they don't have any veil upon them. If you are our muhib, at least ask them to do so. Imam Zainul Abidin, in such a situation where his feet are tied, his hands are tied behind his back, and his back has been bent. Imam salam is the leader of this caravan, and that's when Imam, when he arrives in this dungeon, in this zindan of Sham, he sees his aunt Janab Zainab. Tonight they wanted me to recite a few words of Masaib for the lady who passed away, be it the soyam of that lady. This is a motherly figure who's no longer with the children. How the children will feel for that mother. Janab Zainab Salamullah Alayha is also a mother. She also have given sacrifice of her kids. And when they had won the battle against Yazid and they were being escorted back, there were majalis that were taking place. But look at the courage of Zainab. Where's the motherhood of Zainab? That as she put it away, is it even possible for a mother to do such a thing? The Janab Zainab, but when that majlis was gathered, all these heads were being brought in of shuhada, every lady would go and hold the head of their loved one and they would weep and cry, except these two heads which sat in the corner, that the ladies of Sham said, who are these kids? Do they not have any waris over here who would weep for them, who would cry for them? Zainab said, yes, this is their mother, but how can I weep for my own children? Well, the children of and the child of Fatimatul Zahra is still amongst us. Ala lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamum ayyamun qalbin yanqalibun inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah, this is the month of mercy. This is the month of forgiveness. Forgive us of all of our sins and bestow upon us all of your mercy. Towards the end, I would ask you to recite one Surah Fatiha and 3 times Surah Ikhlas for all the marhumeen, sponsors marhumeen, especially marhuma Lotika Hassan and marhum Sayyid Bakar Hussain. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman Inshallah, we'll conclude with this dua in this month of Ramadan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya Ali, Ya Azim, Ya Ghafur, Ya Rahim. Anta Rabbul Azim alladhi ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه علي وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار في من تمن عليه وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, tomorrow we will start the program at 7 p.m. with the group recitation of Holy Quran. Inshallah, you can join us. For 45 minutes, we'll have the group recitation followed by a brief tafsir. And then, inshallah, we'll pause until 9 p.m. We'll start with dua iftata followed by the speech. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.